Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl in your face while you're sleeping. Top 10 animals that can talk. There's a lot of things that animals can do that can surprise you. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that you've seen animals do some crazy things in the circus, like jump through a ring of fire or balance a ball on their head. But did you know that there are some animals out there that can actually talk? Maybe they're not as chatty as Jimmy Fallon or anything, but they can actually communicate with one another, or with us, in a way that can seem pretty human. Think I'm pulling your leg? Then let's take a look at 10 animals that can talk. Number 10. Akeakamai, the dolphin. A talking dolphin. Perhaps the only place that such a creature could exist is in a Disney movie, right? But Akeakamai's rich and glorious life might just prove you wrong. This female Atlantic bottlenose dolphin was born in 1976. She was part of an extensive group of dolphins that was kept at the Kewalo Basin Marine Mammal Laboratory based in Honolulu, Hawaii. Akeakamai was the subject of several animal language tests that were carried out by Lewis Herman. These tests enabled Akeakamai to understand how to construct simple sentences, including sign language and grammar. She was also able to analyze a problem and come up with ways to solve it. But what was the most impressive feature of this dolphin was that she was able to communicate to her keepers through use of sign language, which was very highly impressive. And the fact that she lived up to 50 and made her a sight for sore eyes with any dolphin lover in the early 2000s. Number 9. Hoover the seal. In 1971, George and Alice Swallow found a baby seal just off the coast of Maine. The little guy appeared to be an orphan, so they took him home and kept him in their bathtub. For the first few days, they tried to feed him ground mackerel, but he refused to eat. Once he trusted his new parents, though, he began eating so voraciously that they compared him to a Hoover vacuum cleaner, and the name stuck. When he got too big for the tub, Hoover was moved to a small pond behind the swallow's house. After only a few months, Hoover was eating more fish than his human caretakers were able to provide, so they contacted the New England Aquarium in Boston, hoping the facility had room for him. When introducing the seal to the aquarium, George mentioned that Hoover could talk. Of course, no one believed him at the time. A few years later, though, researchers at the aquarium noticed that Hoover's guttural sounds really did seem to be forming words and phrases. He was often telling people to get out of here, or asking, "How are ya?" He could say his name and a few other phrases, all with that thick Bostonian accent. Once word got out that the aquarium had a talking seal, he became a media sensation, making appearances in Reader's Digest, The New Yorker, National Public Radio, and even on Good Morning America. Sadly, Hoover died of natural causes in July of 1985, at the ripe old age of 14, which is pretty old for a seal. He was so admired that he received his own obituary in the Boston Globe. He left behind several offspring, but none possessed his unique gift for chatting words. Number 8. Koko the gorilla. Koko the western lowland gorilla was renowned for her emotional depth and ability to communicate in sign language. She became an international celebrity during the course of her life, with a vocabulary of more than 1,000 signs and the ability to understand 2,000 words of spoken English. She was even featured on the National Geographic magazine cover twice, first in October 1978 with a photograph that she took of herself in a mirror. Her second appearance was on the cover in January of 1985, in a story about Koko and her pet kitten. Koko became the most visible member of her species because she was smart enough to comprehend and use aspects of our language. Koko could show us what all great apes are capable of, reasoning about their world and loving and grieving the other beings to whom they become attached. Number 7. Blackie the cat. If you search YouTube for a talking cat, you'll find thousands of videos of fluent felines. But in 1981, a talking cat sounded like something right out of a science fiction novel. So when Carl Miles of Augusta, Georgia, trained his cat Blackie to say, "I love you" and "I want my mama," they took their act on the road. Throughout the early 1980s, Blackie made paid appearances on local TV and radio programs and even hit the big time with a spot on the network TV show That's Incredible. However, as the novelty wore off, Carl and Blackie ended up performing on street corners, asking for donations from passers-by. After some complaints from locals, police informed Carl that he would need to get a business license in order to keep up Blackie's street show. Carl paid the $50 fee for a license, but something about it rubbed him the wrong way. So Carl sued the city of Augusta, under the pretense that the city's business license code mentions many types of occupations that require a license, but a talking cat show was not one of them. But that wasn't the only issue Carl had. He also claimed that the city was infringing on Blackie's First Amendment right to free speech. Yeah, you heard that right. Obviously, Carl lost his case, but he appealed the ruling until it came before a federal court. The argument was finally closed when 3 presiding judges declared that the business license ordinance allowed for other unspecified types of business to require a license, which would encompass a talking cat performer. Talk about a talking cat getting too much attention. Number 6. Knock the beluga whale. Researchers at the National Marine Mammal Foundation in San Diego were taken aback in 1984 when they heard what sounded like people talking inside a whale tank. In fact, the human-like calls were coming from a captive male beluga whale named Knock. A study was subsequently conducted that proved the rhythms recorded from Knock's whales were close in pattern and tonality to that of human speech, meaning that it was probably listening to their trainers and mimicking what they were saying. Number 5. Alex the parrot. Alex, an African gray parrot, was purchased from a Chicago pet store in 1977. Dr. Irene Pepperberg bought the 1-year-old bird to see if she could teach a parrot to understand language in a similar manner to chimpanzees and gorillas that had been taught American Sign Language. At the time, it was believed that a large brain, like a primate's, was necessary to acquire language. By comparison, a parrot's brain is about the size of a walnut, so it was believed that mimicry was the best we could hope for. Instead, Pepperberg's work showed that this parrot could identify over 50 different objects, knew 7 colors and shapes, and many different kinds of materials like wool, paper, and wood. The parrot could also grasp more complex concepts that required a higher level of thought and understanding. He could put a handful of red and yellow blocks on a tray, and if you asked him how many there were yellow, he could tell you the correct answer. If you asked him how many of those same blocks were green, he would say, none. Now, that is simply amazing. Number 4. Koshik the elephant. In 2012, Angela Stoiger-Harwath of the University of Vienna captured footage of Koshik, a male elephant from Korea, communicating in a distinctly human way. Koshik would place his trunk onto his mouth to create a vocal tract that facilitated the expression of pitches and formats similar to that of human speech. Now that is out of this world. It's good to know that elephants can communicate just like us. Number 3. Lucy the chimp. When she was only 2 days old, Lucy, a chimpanzee, was purchased by the University of Oklahoma and sent to live with Dr. Maurice Timarlin, a noted psychologist who, along with his wife, raised the little chimp as if she were their own human child. Lucy was taught how to eat normal meals at the table using silverware. She could dress herself, often choosing to wear skirts just like her mother did. She could even make tea for her parents and the team of researchers who trained and cared for her. Dr. Robert Fouts, one of the groundbreaking psychologists who taught American Sign Language to Washu, the chimp in 1967, helped Lucy learn to communicate using around 250 ASL signs. Lucy could not only give the signs for objects and airplanes, balls, and food, but she could also express her emotions with her hands, often communicating when she was hungry, happy, or sad. Lucy had become so close to humans in almost every way that she only found human men, not chimpanzees, sexually attractive. It was pretty clear in her mind anyway that she was the same as her parents. Once she was 12 years old, her parents decided upon a nature preserve in the Gambia on the western coast of Africa. They, along with research assistant Janice Carter, flew Lucy to her new home to help ease the chimp into the wild. However, it was not going to be as simple as they'd hoped. At the preserve, Lucy was put in a cage at night to protect her from predators. She had only ever slept in a bed inside a nice, quiet suburban home, so the jungle was completely new and frightening for her. She was also scared of other chimps, strange creatures she had only encountered a few times before in her life, preparing to stay close to her parents and Janice whenever she could. She wasn't eating because her food always had been delivered to her on a plate. She didn't even understand the concept of foraging. When her parents suddenly became distant and weren't providing for her with the life she had always known, Lucy became confused and sad. She would often use the sign for hurt, and she lost much of her hair due to the stress of her new situation. Realizing that Lucy would never move on if they stayed, her parents left her behind after 3 weeks. Janice agreed to stay for a few weeks longer, but it was soon clear that Lucy couldn't change who she was, and so Janice never left. Janice helped found a chimpanzee sanctuary on an abandoned island in the middle of the Gambia River. She took Lucy and other chimps that had been raised in captivity and lived with them on the island, teaching them skills that they would need in the wild, like finding food and climbing trees. Whenever Janice visited the island, Lucy was still affectionate, still used sign language, but thankfully, she always went back to the chimps into the forest. But one thing's for sure, Lucy didn't view herself as anything less than human. And now we've come to the best pick of the day. I wonder what seminar this gorilla is holding. Could it be providing self-improvement classes on how to puff your chest the correct way? If that's the case, then I'll be more than happy to take a couple of those classes. Number 2, Rocky the ape. You know what they say, right? Apes are the closest creatures to human beings. So it's a given that they must have some form of communication skills. Well, you'll be pleased to learn that they actually do. In fact, according to a study carried out by researchers from Durham University, the study proved that orangutans have the ability to control their vocal range, communicating in a way not dissimilar to humans. The study centered on an ape named Rocky from the Indianapolis Zoo who mimicked the speech of his caretakers in exchange for food. I guess that means if you're ever feeling alone and need someone to talk to, just get an orangutan as a pet. Number 1, orca whales. We've always known that orcas were brilliant, but to what extent has always been the mystery. Now, according to a recent research publication, orcas have the ability to mimic the complexities of human speech. Joseph Call, a professor of evolutionary origins of mind at the University of St. Andrews and co-author of the study, believes that this could be the first evidence that orcas may be learning sounds by vocal imitation. No wonder that's why they are so good at hunting. And with that being said, we've come to the end of this video. So, which one of these amazing talking animals surprised you the most? Let us know in the comment section down below. Want more videos that will exist until the end of time? Click on any of the videos that you see on the screen. As always, thanks for watching.